Hello friends, my name is Drew, and today I'm going to share with you the routine that I've built over the last year to change my body from this to this. Keep in mind that this routine was built by me and adjusted over time for my specific anatomy and preferences. It isn't meant to be copied or followed perfectly. We all have different body proportions, different preferences, and different mechanics when it comes to performing an exercise. What I do hope you take away from this video is any helpful tips or tricks when it comes to form, lifting cues, and maybe some advice or knowledge that you haven't heard before. And with that all out of the way, I do hope you enjoy the video and maybe learn something. For the first day of the week, I like to start with a heavy leg day. That way I don't have the excuse of being too sore or too tired later in the week. And I begin my leg day with 3 sets of hamstring curls for 10 to 12 reps. For the record, I recorded the last set of each exercise so that you can see how hard I typically go on my final sets, and you can mirror me if you want to. The pause at the top of the curl doesn't really do much for me other than give me a pretty significant burn in my hamstrings, and it's something I typically only do on the final set. My second exercise is the classic high bar squat for 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. I find that it's a lot easier on my joints to do some warm-up sets with the bar and some lighter weights before going into my working sets. It also gives me a chance to check my form and make sure everything feels right, and form really depends on the individual. For me, I have to take a wider stance with flared feet because of my longer thighs and shorter shins. It all really depends on what feels most comfortable and allows for the greatest range of motion. And for the best muscle gains, I try to squat as low as possible without it being uncomfortable or causing any pain. If my hamstrings touch my calves, then I'm pretty happy with the range of motion. The third exercise is a single leg press with low feet for 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. Placing the feet lower is better for quad growth because it allows for a deeper quad stretch under load. The fourth exercise is a machine hip thrust for 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. I use a machine rather than a barbell because it keeps me in a fixed path and it hurts my back less. I find the best results with a deep range of motion and a 1-second pause at the top of each rep. The fifth exercise is a repeat of the first, hamstring curls for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. And again, you don't need to pause the weight at the top of each rep as shown here. As long as you are controlling the lowering part of each rep, you should be fine. The sixth exercise of the day is the leg extension for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Again, the pause is optional, but it's highly encouraged for anyone who's a masochist like me. The seventh and final exercise of the day is the single leg calf raise for 6 sets of 10 to 12 reps. And I only do the bottom half of each rep because it's been shown to promote the most hypertrophy. And I also try to go as deep as possible for the maximum muscle stretch. Moving on to day 2, a heavy push day. The first exercise is the 30-degree dumbbell bench press for 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps. As with every exercise, I try to go as deep as possible without exaggerating the exercise itself. I found that by doing so, it maximizes the muscle fatigue in each muscle that I'm targeting. The second exercise is the barbell bench press for 4 sets of 4 to 6 reps. This lift is pretty straightforward, but all I would say is make sure that the barbell doesn't bounce off your chest. I've ended up with a bruised sternum doing that and would highly recommend against it. The third exercise is the dumbbell overhead press for 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. I like to have just a slight angle in the bench so that I'm not sitting exactly straight up, as that kind of compromises the stability of the lift. The fourth exercise is the overhead tricep extension for 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. This exercise is also pretty straightforward, and the only thing I would have to say is to make sure that your hands go all the way back on the eccentric part of the lift. The fifth exercise is the cable lateral raise for 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. The reason I prefer a cable over a dumbbell is the constant tension at every portion of the lift, especially at the bottom when the shoulder is at its most stretched position. I also try to incorporate as much range of motion as I can to really put my shoulder through as much movement as possible. The sixth exercise is a machine fly for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I try to keep my head back and my chest engaged the entire time by doing a slight pause at the top of each rep and imagining that I'm trying to crush a can between my pecs. The seventh and final exercise is a rope tricep pushdown for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I try to keep my elbows locked in a fixed position so that my triceps are stuck doing the majority of the movement. On now to day 3, a heavy pull day. The first exercise of the day is weighted pull-ups or lat pulldowns for 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. Since it's still a bit too cold to use my outdoor pull-up bar, I opted for pull-downs today. I pull all the way down to my nipple line for every rep, and once I can't pull that low, that's the end of my set. The second exercise is a seated cable row for 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. I let myself lean forward on the eccentric part of the lift to get a deep stretch in my lats, but I otherwise try to remain upright with minimal swaying. The third exercise is the machine rear delt fly for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I try to pull back as far as I can as long as it isn't uncomfortable. I finish with my set once I can no longer pull to the point that my arms are in a straight line. The fourth exercise is a straight arm lat pull down for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I have a tendency to feel this lift in my triceps, so I try to initiate each rep by imagining that I'm pulling with my elbows and not with my hands. The fifth exercise is a Bayesian cable curl for 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Like the tricep pushdowns, I aim to keep my elbow in a fixed position the entire time. I begin each rep with my arm fully extended, and I finish when the cable touches the back of my arm. The sixth exercise is the easy bar curl for 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. I prefer the easy bar because it reduces the strain on my wrists and elbows compared to a straight bar. The seventh and final exercise of the day is a single leg calf raise for 6 sets of 10 to 20 reps. On to day 4, a lighter leg day. Like day 1, I start out with 3 sets of hamstring curls, but for 12 to 15 reps. The second exercise is my all-time favorite quad exercise, the hack squat. I recommend putting your feet back as far as possible as long as your knees tolerate the movement well. The third exercise is a machine hip thrust for 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Sometimes I'll put my hands behind my head so that I'm not tempted to use them to move some of the weight off of my hips. The fourth exercise is a standing hip extension for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. This one is kind of tricky as my lower back has a tendency to try to involve itself in the lift more than I'd like, and so I try to focus on the squeeze at the top of the rep, and that usually takes my lower back out of the lift for the most part. The fifth exercise is 3 final sets of hamstring curls for 12 to 15 reps. And the sixth and final leg exercise of the week is leg extensions for 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. On now to day 5, a lighter push day. I start out this day with a barbell bench press on a 30-degree bench for 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps. I make sure that each rep is controlled all the way down to the top of my chest and fully locked out for it to count. The second exercise of the day is the dumbbell bench press for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I focus on getting as deep of a stretch as possible on my chest and not touching the dumbbells together at the top of each rep. The third exercise is the dumbbell overhead press for 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Similar to the dumbbell bench press, I move the weight as low as possible, usually touching my shoulders before pressing upward and locking out my elbows. The fourth exercise is an easy bar skull crusher for 4 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Like most of my exercises, I try to maximize the range of motion by stretching behind me on the bench as low as my arms will allow. Then I pull the weight up and right above my face to allow myself to rest and breathe between reps. The fifth exercise is the cable lateral raise for 4 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Doing lateral raises for more than 10 reps can cause a pretty significant burn in my shoulders, but it always plateaus if I push past it. I try not to let a burn stop me from getting to the correct RPE, as that's where I get the best muscle growth. In my brain, the burn means I'm almost done. The sixth exercise is a low to high cable fly. I do this exercise unilaterally because I don't have dual cables. I try to keep my torso stable while I let the cable pull my arm behind me. Then I pull the cable so that my arm makes a relatively straight line with the cable. I make sure to squeeze for a second at the top of each rep to make sure I feel it in my chest. The seventh exercise is the overhead cable tricep extension for 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. It is performed identically to the same exercise earlier in the week. The eighth and final exercise of the day is a machine calf raise for 6 sets of 10 to 20 reps. The functionality of this movement is pretty much identical to the unilateral movement earlier in the week. I don't recommend putting your hands on the cushions like I did here, as I only did that to keep the cushions from rotating and slipping off of my legs. I moved the machine against a wall and fixed the problem for the next time. On to the sixth and final lifting day of the week, a light pull day. I start out similarly to day 3 with either a weighted pull-up or lat pull-downs for 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps. The 4 main cues are identical to day 3. The second exercise is a chest supported row for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I use a towel to push my chest back further to really give me a deep stretch on my lats. I read that I should be able to pull the weight to where a barbell would touch my chest on a bench press, and that is the cue that I've been using for depth. Once I can't pull that far anymore, the set is done. The third exercise is a reverse cable fly for 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. I would ideally have the cable placed at shoulder height, but since my cable attachments are fixed at the ceiling and the floor, I have to improvise with what I have. I pull across my body to make sure that every muscle fiber in my rear delts are activating to move the weight from one side of my body to the other, and that's really helped me. The fourth exercise is a straight arm lat pull down for 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. This exercise is performed identically to the one earlier in the routine. The fifth exercise is a single arm lat pull down for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I misplaced the footage I took of me doing this exercise, so I borrowed some footage from a channel on YouTube. I kneel on one leg and pull from the opposite arm until my elbow touches my ribs. I'm done with the set once I can no longer touch my elbow to my ribs. The sixth exercise is a machine preacher curl for 4 sets of 12 to 15 reps. I start each rep with my arm fully straight and locked out, and I pull the weight to the point that the machine stops me. Then I lower the weight slowly until my arm is locked out again and repeat. The seventh and final exercise of the week is a cross-body alternating hammer curl for 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. This exercise can give a pretty significant burn, so it's important to push past it until you are only able to do 1 or 2 more reps before stopping. I hope that this video helped you in some way, and let me know in the comments what other types of videos you might want to see in the future. I think my next video will probably go over nutrition and like what I eat in a week, so subscribe if you'd like to see that. Anyways, be kind, lift heavy, and have a great day.